Hello and welcome everybody to one of our new formats we want to do, which is called First Thoughts. So pretty similar to other YouTube videos. When new cards get revealed, we want to dive into the archetypes. Who will do it kind of depends on who is interested in the deck. So for example, I played the past couple of weeks Demon Realm race deck, so I was very excited to see that Mechi got announced, and I will now briefly guide you through all the revealed cards for blacks. I waited for today, 2 p.m. European Standard Time, to see if any more black cards are there, if we maybe get a secret or one of the 3 numbers that are missing later to that. And yeah, we do a quick dive into Mechi. So it's a very generic leader, I have to say. Front side, burst 2, 1 card from live to hand, and then a top 5 search for a Demon Raves or Demon God card. You awaken while doing burst 1 when your life is 5 or less, draw 2 cards. So it's pretty similar on the front side to the pan. Just the way on how you take lives is a little bit more different. While in pan you do it every time you combo. In this deck you need to press the activate main button, so the opponent can deny basically you awakening in turn 2 if he's playing smart. On the backside, this is the more interesting thing. It's still a very generic leader, I have to say, but it kind of has a brief archetype around Dark Overwhelm card. It's not once per turn, so every time you play a card by the Dark Overwhelm skill, you draw 1, and then you refill your drop by putting 3 battle cards from warp into drop. So this is pretty interesting. Also, it is not Dark King Mechi itself, but also Supreme Kai, which allows some nice combinations with having also the special trait of God and the character of Supreme Kai in here. And he has an activate main. Once per turn, the next Dark Overwhelm skill is reduced by 1 specific black. So this leader in itself is pretty interesting. Let's dive into the archetype a little bit. So first of all, I will also go over this card. This card is very generic. I'm pretty honest here. I don't like the card. Usually. And now I explain why. So this card basically is a 3 negate for black. As long as your life is 4 or less and you have 5 or more cards in your drop, you basically activate this counter attack by warping all the cards in your drop. So basically this is a save button if you're like in a desperate situation of negating an attack. But I don't see this card getting played more than 1 or 2 times in a deck. Because first of all, it warps your whole drop, and most black decks want to work with that drop to overwhelm for the next turn, or maybe to also play something like Power Burst. And second of all, you know, your Koitsukai is punishing you really bad, and usually you try to punish black a little bit with Koitsukai if you know there's also like their counter plays up, and maybe they play something like Kai and stuff. So yeah, the condition here is a little bit strange to me. Then we have a new Z card. I think this is the most generic as it can get basically. Every deck who has Overwhelm or Dark Overwhelm can run it. It's a 2 energy, 3 Z energy battle card with triple attack. I think in a meta where floodgates are so relevant, getting the triple attack through might be difficult. However, if you're really good at Z charging and you have a lot of that, and you just need that final push, this card might be for you if you're a deck that wants to combo a lot. Also good support for Pan, good support for Shroom Salsa BT18, because having a 3 Z energy cost battle card is always good to basically reset or refill your drop. So this is very interesting to see. And then we have our archetype. So basically all the Dark Overwhelm cards operate the same. They all cost 1, sometimes Dark Overwhelm 4 or 5. Sometimes basically you draw for them, sometimes you don't, and then they all have an effect or keyword which make them interesting. So basically you can only play them when your leader is a Mechi card, which I think is the biggest downside of the whole archetype. And this card basically is a draw engine which says, well, if you play another card with Dark Overwhelm limit 1, you draw an additional 1. Remember, your leader says every time you play something with Dark Overwhelm, you draw a new card. So basically this is a draw 2 then, or a draw 3, if the card itself also has like this little text on here. And then we have Fu support. I think this is one of the best supports I've seen in my whole life, playing that game, which is since BT17. Basically this Fu, or this Cumber, allows you to play the boss monster, the 8-drop Fu, for 1 energy less, which is huge. And you can even do something like, well, you place your 8-drop in your Z deck and then immediately play it from your Z deck. Or now you also have a reason to basically put your boss monster on the Z deck, because before you wanted to have that in your hand. And now you can also put that in your Z deck. So this alone is pretty good. And we will later come on to a card which is even better for the deck. Then it continues with Dark Overwhelm cards. So this is a wormhole which basically cycles itself, combined with the leader. That's a draw 2, and you get a wormhole and a 20k body. This one is Overwhelm 4. It doesn't basically recycle itself, but it allows for the opponent basically or for you to have a little bit of hand control. And at the end of the turn, you choose 2 of your Dark Overwhelm cards and switch them to active mode, which is cool, I guess. Then you have Toa, one of the best cards for the whole archetype. First of all, she has Double Strike. Double Strike is always important in some matchups against green with Dormant, for example. It's also good game closer or finisher. Also, she resets your drop basically. You put 2 of your Black Battle cards from your warp into your drop together with your leader. That's 5 cards in total, so you can play her first in a turn and then play something else later on, because your drop already reset itself. You don't need to do anything else. And then she also warps an opponent's battle card. So basically, when your opponent responds with a token negate or has a blocker there, you just play her, warp the blocker, swing 20k face in 20k double into face, and then you can play another Dark Overwhelm if you have Wormhole up, to basically do something else. So she is gold. She is one of the best Dark Overwhelm cards I've seen for the archetype. Then you have a 1-cost top 5 search for Demon Realm Race, energy cost 5 or less, which I think is not that good, to be honest. He searches for all the Dark Overwhelm cards, but that's basically it. He doesn't search for the boss monster, which I think is a bummer, because there is a 1-drop Salsa which already does filter. But he has this nice effect of Burst 2. When you play a battle card with a Dark Overwhelm skill, it doesn't have to be played by the Dark Overwhelm skill, but just if you play a battle card with a Dark Overwhelm skill. Yeah, he gets 6k power. I think this is... You can ignore that part. You most likely will Z-charge him after you play him. The Burst 2 could be interesting to reset basically your drop, because your leader resets 3 and then you burst 2 additional. But I don't know if you want to burst that often after you awakened. Then on the next day, we had our nice boss monster. So he is basically our boss for the deck. On play, he warps something, a battle card. And when he's played, you can play 1 additional battle card with energy cost 5 or less, Overwhelm or Dark Overwhelm skill from your warp with its non-keyword skills negated. So for example, you can play him together with a Toa for 2 energy. You can warp something, and then you have a 30k double striker and a 20k double striker, which I think is pretty huge for 2 energy and black. This is how you really make an efficient play. In other decks, because he's generic, he might not see play. I can see him getting play in some other Demon Realm Race decks. Then you basically play the Overwhelm card and then maybe combo with the Overwhelm card immediately. You could obviously also do some shenanigans in Saiyan decks. If you then play the Overwhelm counterplay or the Overwhelm combo attack, they don't have their effects, so they're just 20k bodies. But then you have a Goku or a Vegeta Xeno card on board if you want to Union Potara for an additional energy. However, I have the feeling that 2 energy is too costly for those Black Saiyan decks. Then Fu, which is the other crucial support card for the Fu deck. This is basically a better version of the Mechi Kabura 1-drop you used to play in Fu. So he has Overlord, he's a 1-drop, he draws 1, and then you can remove him from your drop from the game, place 1 Black Kamba card from your hand into your Z deck and draw 1. So he basically allows you pretty easy to set up your Z deck to play new combos, because the most annoying thing in this Fu deck is when you do a top 5 search with your leader, draw 1 first, and then you drew a 6-drop combo, who you're now having trouble getting into your Z deck without playing like one of the 5-drop Fus. And then you do a top 5 search and you don't find anything. So this was the most annoying part. This card fixes that immediately. Also, you can just play him if you like to draw 1, if you get floodgated, and then to overload one of your other 6-drop Fus to draw another one. So this is like pretty huge for the deck overall. You can also run him in any other black deck. However, I have the feeling that the Mechi Kabura 1-drop is still better suited because Fu is not a Saiyan, so most likely a scientist won't have a better searcher than a Demon Realm race card will have. And the Mechi Kabura also creates a token basically for you to combo. So yeah, these are the two cards we got. We got also more Dark Overwhelm stuff. This is the only Dark Overwhelm card not tied to the leader, so you can run her in other black decks. Will she see play? I'm not sure. I can't think of any deck that has space for her. Her trait is very awkward with the God trait. If she would have been a Dark Demon Realm race card, I could see her being run in other Dark Demon Realm race decks. However, God card is kind of weird. She has Dark Overwhelm 5 for 1 black, so in every other deck she costs 1. You get a barrier blocker with 30k for 1 energy that restands at the end of the turn. Saiyan decks for the same energy get a double striker on top that bursts 2 and restands either way. So this card won't restand if you block with her, it just restands at the end of your turn. But it's obviously good in the Mechi deck to be played at the side of the boss monster, for example. But I don't see her being a generic staple for every other deck. You could also overlord her in other decks, but then again, why overlord a 30k barrier blocker, right? Doesn't make sense. It only makes sense if you blocked with her and then you have no use for her and you don't think you need her in your opponent's turn again. Then we have Shroom, also a very awesome card for the Mechi deck because he's a dual attacker and he solves one of the major problems from the deck. Every one of these Dark Overwhelm cards had 20k, so there's no need to combo in this deck at all. Well, guess what? When he swings, he combos from the warp. And he has dual attack and this on-swing auto isn't once per turn. So basically, you combo 2 cards from your warp, therefore creating 2 Z energy, which is crucial for your super combo of choice, or for potential as the extra, the battle card, whatever. So this is definitely also like a must include in the deck. This is a new super combo. I really love that Bandai is now going the way of creating other useful super combos and not like creating more if your life is 4 less draw 1 super combos, because let's be honest, those suck. This one is interesting because first of all it has the Demon Realm race trait. The only other Demon Realm race super combo we got so far was a Salsa, which is exactly that, 4 less life, draw 1. This card is way better for something like Shroom and Salsa, BT12, BT18, because you easily have your Z energy up, but sometimes you also want to invest that Z energy in a Z battle card, and now you have a super combo that at least draws 1 when you fulfill these kind of roles. I think this is a good addition to every black deck. It's the similar effect, I think, to the Evil Saiyan we got before. But still, it's nice to see another trait being used here, so it's especially useful for the Demon Realm race decks. And then we have finally a Z card. I was really like wondering myself if this archetype gets a Z card at all. This is also kind of a generic card, because auto, if your leader is black for 1 and 1, when this card is placed in a battle area or removed from the game, place up to 2 cards from the top of your deck into the owner's drop. So basically, when this card is placed or removed, burst 2. If your leader's black, you can run it in every black deck, so for 1 energy, now you have generic access to a burst 2 if you need it for whatever reason. Activate main limit 1, and this is now more tied to the archetype. If your battle card with a Dark Overwhelm skill is in play and you remove this card from the game, you can play an additional battle card with an energy cost of 5 or less and Dark Overwhelm skill from your warp with its non-keyword skills negated for the game. So basically what you can do in turn 2 is for 1 and 1 play this card to have another burst 2. If you need for whatever reason more cards in your drop, then you can play a Dark Overwhelm card and basically play another one from your warp. So this card is basically for 1 energy, a burst 2, play another Dark Overwhelm card, and then another burst 2. So I think this is high value. If you want to play an aggressive style, you can set it up for later for like these final turns. Then we have one of the best 1-drops for the deck I could imagine. So this is like simple draw 1, and then if your leader is a Mechi Kabura card and you have 2 or more energy, this card gains Wormhole. So this is immediate value. I was thinking to include the Demigra before to just set up Wormhole, but it feels kinda wasted to spend 1 of your Dark Overwhelms just to get Wormhole in place. Now you have a better solution. You just play in your first turn this 1-drop, hopes it stays alive, and then in the second turn you immediately have Wormhole for free. You could obviously also play the Demigra Z Unison, which is also pretty good for the deck because your leader recycles 3 and he basically recycles 2 again, and then you draw 2 and discard 2, so it's a better version, but this is also like a very cheap option to getting Wormhole in case you need your Z energy otherwise. So this feels pretty huge. And then last card, the generic extra card that needs to be included for every archetype, but nobody will ever play it. I call this the Pedo card because Mechi Kaburo is having a little bit too much fun with Kai on his whatever. What is his hand doing here? Well, if your leader is a Black Mechi Kaburo card, you can choose up to 1 of your Dark Overwhelm cards, give it Servant. Additionally, if it's a Supreme Kai of time, you basically reset 2 battle cards from your warp in your drop. This card gave me thinking if this does mean that we get a Black Secret Rare maybe with Supreme Kai on it. Because to be honest, the only Supreme Kai we have for the archetype already has Servant. So maybe it's meant as a bonus effect because giving her Servant doesn't change anything. I'm not sure about that, to be honest. Yeah. It feels weird, or maybe there is a mechanic where you can give a card 2 times Servant and then the effect triggers 2 times. But I wouldn't think so. Yeah, these were all the new cards I was hoping for today for another secret or something else. Or missing cards, because we still have missing cards. I want to show you that. So the Bardock has the number 95. And then we have the first type of the archetype that starts at 99. So the numbers 96 to 97 are missing. My suspicion is that they won't be Z cards, because the Z cards were like 93 and I think 94 with this one. Yep, and then we had a generic SR. So I think the 3 numbers missing could be the Zenkai rares or could be something else they do not show us for whatever reason. Usually secret rares numbers are the highest number of a color. So I would expect if we have a black secret to be it above 100. Like you can see with the super combo here 107, so even after that. Yeah, but today we started with green, so I thought I now make this video and now we dive into Deck Planet. So welcome to Deck Planet, I think the best deck builder for Masters there will ever be, to be honest. I will quickly show you my first draft of the deck, I haven't tested it yet. And we basically start with the archetype. So 8 1-drops, I think this is pretty good to make sure that you see a 1-drop in turn 1, that you gain value out of your 1 energy. And then we have the must-have cards, I think the Dual Attacker, this one here, and the Tower are a must-have 8 off in every deck. And then you can basically derive a little bit. I did not include the Poutine and I did not include the Demigra. The Demigra is pretty easy. I have other access to Wormhole. I don't need to waste an Overrealm on that. And for the Poutine, it's more a decision of what do I want my Dark Overrealm cards to do. So she is a value engine. She basically draws 1 on play. With your leader, that's a draw 2, so you make +1. And then for the next Overrealm you play, you also make a guaranteed +1. So she will be very good if you decide to play Dark Mechi in a more controlish style. However, this is not the way I want to play it. I want to make pressure. I'm an aggro player usually. I want to basically get into the face of my opponent. And so therefore I decided to include 4 Shroom, 4 Tower, 4 of the Salsa, because he's also kind of aggro, because he, thanks to the leader, basically resets himself. And then I warp something from the opponent's hand, and then at the end of the turn, if I have a Tower in play, for example, or the Shroom, I can restand Shroom and him, so it's even more difficult for my opponent to remove that cards because they can't swing at them. So they need to spend resources like on-play effects, on-swing effects that remove battle cards or minus battle cards. This one is more of a value engine. This is the only card not from the archetype that has Dark Overrealm with a specified black energy. And this card in this deck is basically a draw 3, discard 1. So together with your leader ability, you have immediately 4 cards in your drop, and you draw on, and you saw 3 new cards, which is huge. They are also removal, a thing that is kind of lacking. Only Toa has removal and Mechi. They also have removal only for 6 cost or less, as soon as you basically place 1 of your energy into your drop. However, this is not that bad because you can still place one of your energy in your drop if you want to have a Dark Overwhelm 5, for example, without like doing any other stuff. And you don't even need to warp something. So this is pretty cool. I'm excited to see how they perform in this deck. And then we have non-archetype stuff, but still related stuff. So this is Robelu, a card that got released in TP8 or TP9. If your leader is black, you have 2 or more energy and you place one of your battle cards with Overwhelm or Dark Overwhelm skill in its owner's drop. Play this card from your warp, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and send it to its owner's warp, and your leader gets plus 5k for the turn. So she is a good target for comboing early because you can only play her from warp anyway. You don't need to have her in hand. She beans your leader for your turn, which allows for more aggressive plays, and she gets rid of stuff. So in a turn where you want to finish your opponent and they responded with a token negate, she's a good thing to play because you will most likely have a Dark Overwhelm card on board. And then you just put it into your drop, play her, bean your leader, and then you have 20k swing here and 20k swing with your leader. Then generic barrier removal. I think even though we now have the Gohansi battle card, this is still a must-have in black decks because 2 energy for the Gohansi battle card oftentimes feels too much. And with him you can also snipe low things like Putin in yellow decks, or for example, if you play against U7 and they're already at 4 energy, you can snipe their Barrier Goku card or whatever without needing to worry that the only card you can warp is an energy cost higher than your opponent has energy. So he's still, in my opinion, a must-have in every black deck at 4. Prove me wrong. Then this card also must-have if you just think about playing the Unisons, or if you just think about playing black, please include a Z Unison and him at 4. This effect is just too good, to be honest. You can also Z-charge something, which is pretty good for black decks because, like I told you, in this deck you don't want to combo aggressively very much. And he's another 20k buddy. He also has the Overwhelm skill, which is pretty cool for Putin or for Robelu later on to put him in drop and do stuff again. Then we have something interesting. So like I told you before, our leader also has the Supreme Kai tag, which allows for nice shenanigans here. So this is like one of the only black decks where you have a counter for 3. Important, you need to pay 3 energy. This thing here is not related to the counter. This is pretty cool because you now have a counter. So for example, your opponent has 1 life left and he basically wants to do something like Hachiyak to you. You swing with your leader, you have all your energy open, then you can just counter the hatch, for example. And then you're good to go. Pretty good card to have. I'm pretty sure most people who play Mechi will run this card at least 1. Then we have another sneaky tech. I love to play this card in other black decks, not for the tower chain, but for the second effect. We're now in a phase where Z-Unisons are a thing, and like it or not, this card is basically a jumper in Demon Realm Race decks. So if your Demon Realm Race or Demon God card is in a battle for Spirit Boost 1 and 1 black, when this card is used in a combo, your card that is in a battle gets 10k power and double strike for the battle. So basically, you can give something 15k double strike because when you combo her, it's also 5k additional for 1 energy and Spirit Boost 1. Like I told you, most of the time you want to have a Z-Unison because of him anyway. And in this deck, there might be a Z-Unison that has Wormhole. It is even better to have that. And this is constant pressure. If you fear running into Dormant, you can even up the numbers on her and then you can just play your Z-Unison. And then you can swing with leader or whatever card you like and then give double 15k plus. This is a lot of value. Then secret of choice. I'm very afraid that black is in such a weird state at the moment. So the only black secret you can comfortably run, in my opinion, is Evil Saiyan. He's the only card that is being allowed to play from Warp. And there's no chance that you can recycle 8 drops from your warp, and the reality is most secrets are 8 drops. So I think the only secrets that come into my mind that are 7 cost in black is like the Dark Dragon Ball thing that is basically useless, and the Goku Apex of Origin. But in this deck you will have so many cards in hand because everything basically gives you +1 or at least ±0. You don't really want to waste energy on Apex or something. When I would wish for a secret, I would hope that the next black secret is also being allowed to play from warp, or that they begin to make black secrets 7 costs or less. So they have a chance with, for example, in this deck, Salsa, or in generic black decks with Beyond All Limits, to recycle your secrets so you're not afraid of bursting or warping from the top of your deck. For now, this is the only good choice if you want to make sure that you can use your secret in every deck, every time you play it, because you burst. Super combo of choice could be that Cumber is better. I believe she is searchable, she will do the job. 2 Petrifications, 3 Power Burst, 3 Dark Empire, 2 Gohan Negates. I think this is like the generic Black Negate package. Power Burst will be very good in this deck because you can recycle Rubelo, which then again you can play for 1 to get Wormhole ready if you don't want to waste Z energy on, for example, Demigra, which is like one of the most important cards for this deck as well, because he gains Wormhole if you like to, and he makes it pretty easy to cycle through your deck. So I think he's a must include. If you don't have Z energy or you don't want to waste Z energy, playing Rubelu will do the job as well. He has the advantage of offering you also access to the counterplay. And then we have generic black stuff, I guess. I run this one at 2. I'm not sure about the ratios yet, if this card is even worth running, because the Anniversary Z extra in black is generic, pretty good. This one is a defensive option, so if you go in second against a heavy aggro deck, you can just play her, then +1, and then you immediately have your counter play online, so your opponent will waste swings on her, or will play something and you are able to respond to that. So she's pretty good generically. And then just testing that stuff out, I'm not sure how good it will be. In every other deck, like I said, this card feels being too expensive. And even when I spoke to Pan players, they tend to play the Goku Z battle card more, because for 1 and 2 energy, you get at least, if you have 10 cards in Warp or Drop, a 25k double dual swing, which is oftentimes exactly the same value as this guy. For the side deck, these are more like funny options I found. First off, your leader has the God trait. So basically what you could do is run this card. If your leader is green or a God card, you have 3 or more energy and you choose 2 God cards in your drop, play this card from your hand, place all of the chosen card with this skill under this card, and your opponent discards 1 card from their hand, activate main, add 1 card from under this card to your Z energy, choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards and KO it. I don't think this card will be played in this deck. Cool thing is, you have discards option now, and you can Z-charge pretty easily. However, cards need to be in your drop. You usually want your drop to be used for Dark Overrealm. And the only God cards you have here is really just the Supreme Kai. And I don't see a world in which you have 2 of them in your drop and then you can finally play Zamasu. But another funny thing you can do also, since your leader is a God card, you can play this super combo instead of the Demon Realm Race one, which might see play, because this card has the big advantage of placing something in your drop, so basically activating your drop for Dark Overrealm, and then you draw 2. And since your leader is at 5 life when awakened, you can easily go down to 4 with a token negate or something, and then you have her life. She's not searchable in this deck, because she's not Dark Demon Realm Race, but she works, and I can actually see people playing her, and then since she is a God card, people might play this one. However, you cannot put her back from your warp in your drop, because she's not a black battle card. So let's see what people do with that stuff, if they do something. Then, like I told you before, your leader is also a Supreme Kai card, so you can basically play every card that says Supreme Kai of Time. I don't think that this is worth it. He's a 25k double strike. You can also play it if you have a Trunks Xeno in play, so if you play him with Wormhole, then play him. Could also be a thing, I don't know. I'm not sure if this is better than your standard stuff you do. Let's see what people do with that. Then obviously there's the 2 cards of the archetype I did not include in my first build. I think these are good if you want to play for a more controlish version of the deck, but I'm not the heavy control player. And then there's also an Overrealm fitting for that deck, but I didn't have space for it. So this card is basically an Overrealm 4. He operates similarly to Beyond All Limits. You recycle something from Warp with an energy cost of between 3 and 7. But you also, when this card is played, you draw one and you need to send one card from your hand to your warp. So you will basically do ±0 because you minus him, you play him, then you minus something from hand by putting it in warp, and you recycle something from warp, so this is basically an exchange, and then you draw one, so you recycle him. It's a cool card. It's especially good if you want to play Toa again or another overwhelm card, whatever. However, it does not work good together with your leader ability because it's not a dark overwhelm, so you don't reset your drop basically, which could be a problem. And yeah, generally speaking, this one here allows you to play the dark overwhelm cards from warp anyway with the keyword skills, and I think this is more than enough, so I don't see why you should recycle something. You could recycle this one or this one or this one if you are unhappy with your burst, but whatever. And there's not a card you really want to warp. Like, this is the only card you want to warp from hand because you can only play her from warp. Or you can, I mean, it's 3 cards, maybe 5 if you count them in and you don't want to use the decharge effect. But I don't think it's worse. So overall, these are 55 cards. I'm not sure if that's too much or too less. Usually by running black burst decks, 55 feels okay. If you're going for turn 4, turn 5. I will test it. And yeah, that's it for the video. It's a little bit of a longer one because I like to discuss a lot of things. If you have any comments or any suggestions on how to improve this format, just drop a comment. And until then, see ya guys.